This place is spectacular, but getting there isn't easy. Be ready for challenges like icy water crossings, bushwhacking, and insufferable mosquitoes. Plan your ferry carefully. Note that the bus doesn't run daily and requires reservations. See links below for more information. Holden offers fantastic meals, but we had some miles to do, so we walked a mile to the campground by the ball field, cached some supplies in the bear locker there, and headed out. Just as we were leaving, we saw some people heading back for lunch, and to our surprise, those were the last people we saw for over 24 hours. Our little guy might still look like a puppy, but he turned 10 this week. Our annual birthday tradition is to take him somewhere away from the 4th of July fireworks. Lyman Lake has been on our radar for a while, and seemed like a great base camp with lots of day hiking options, making it perfect for an adventure with our little one. This first section is dry, hot, and exposed. The only reliable water is the horse ford, which can easily be accessed on the town side. Our dog's cooling jacket does a great job, but only if we keep it wet. From town to Lower Lyman is about 9 miles, which our dog can usually do on a cool day, but not on a warm, sunny day. And we weren't going to be able to carry him uphill with full packs. Hart Lake sits about halfway between town and Lyman and was our backup plan for the first night if it was too hot. We knew that once we passed Hart Lake, the hard part would start, but it got us sooner than we were expecting, with a surprise ford just as we were leaving. On our way back, the water was low enough to cross with dry feet, but not today. The trail has some ups and downs along the way, but is generally pretty mild, then gains most of the elevation all at once. We were expecting a big climb on a hot south-facing slope, but what we weren't quite prepared for was the aggressive vegetation. We were wading and pushing through thick brush that was often shoulder height for a couple of miles, and the ground underfoot had plenty of hidden surprises and large holes to navigate. This wasn't quite what I envisioned, and I questioned our choice more than a few times, but we did it. Home for a couple of nights, complete with a welcome party of mosquitoes. We chose to venture up Cloudy Pass for our first day of exploring. Often in Washington, people refer to any bit of clearing as a meadow, but when I picture a meadow, I picture something more expansive. Cloudy Pass and nearby Spider Meadow definitely meets that vision. This place is both a wildflower and marmot heaven. And today, our pup decided that those marmot whistles were just too scary for him to handle. This was a first for us, and a bit of a surprise, because he's usually pretty fearless, but I'm sure the marmots didn't mind. One of the areas we wanted to explore was Lyman Ridge, but we found that to be completely impassable almost immediately due to snow. It was such a weird combination up here of some flowers already gone to seed, while others were just emerging, and some areas were completely snowbound. We ventured a little way up Cloudy Peak instead, to get a better view of the surrounding mountains. From Cloudy Pass, you can go so many places. Continue west over the next pass and turn south on the PCT towards Glacier Peak and Stevens Pass, north on the PCT towards the town of Stehekin, or cross it and keep going west towards Image Lake and Miners Lookout. We saw our first human companion out here, a solo trail runner who was doing another option, the over 30-mile Buck Pass Spider Gap Loop, as a day run. Fine to be in such a remote area and yet have 4 options for ways to get out. If you think those marmots look like pests you may have in your backyard, you're right. Marmots, affectionately called whistle pigs, are a close relative of groundhogs. Better known for their love of eating their way through gardens in a single day and digging in unfortunate places. They're both actually a type of squirrel. Luckily in the mountains they are generally beloved and are usually happy to enjoy their meadow buffet, but occasionally they can cause some mischief too. They like salt and have been known to nibble packs, salted with sweat, and in some areas they have caused some chaos by climbing into the undercarriages of vehicles and chewing hoses. When we got back to the lake, we did a bit more exploring and found another camp area that was just too good to pass up. So much for just setting up camp once. We opted for the lazy route for moving camp. I'm not sure it actually saved us any time, but it did the trick, and we were soon back to enjoying our private lake. We ended up being the only people to camp on this lake for the entire long weekend, and we only saw a couple other small groups. We did see evidence that we were sharing the lake with at least one bear, but we never spotted it, which was fine by us. The downside of having an entire lake to yourself is that the thousands of mosquitoes have very little selection, and they were relentless. They were bad enough that we had to retreat to the refuge of our tent, and there we amused ourselves for a bit, seeing how far we could launch them by flicking them through the screen mesh. We treated everything with permethrin and applied Picaridin liberally, but they seemed totally unfazed and were happy to bite right through multiple layers of treated clothing. We found that the sheltered Upper Lyman Lake basin was even worse. Mosquitoes can ingest more than their body weight in blood, and while that isn't actually very much, we think they took at least a pound off each of us with the countless bites. They do stop biting when it gets chilly, but we had a blissfully warm long weekend. Luckily, they usually only fly a little over a mile an hour, so as long as we kept moving, they weren't too bad. The mosquitoes hatch as the snow melts, so you might want to consider later in the season when they calm down. The problem with waiting is the fires. We hadn't even made it to July before the first fire sprung up in this area. We checked with the rangers before our trip, and were told the area was safe enough for now, because there were some of these big snowy peaks between us and the blaze, but to monitor the situation and have a plan, which we did via a daily fire and weather report on our satellite device. It turned out okay for us, but later in July I talked to a woman on the PCT who had been evacuated from this area just a week later. And later in the summer, a lightning storm ignited another fire by Holden Lake, just above the town Holden, and forced another evacuation. Today, a hint of smoke hung in the air, and it seemed to be creeping over the glacier through Spider Pass in little puffs. The colors of this place may seem unreal, but they aren't. They're a telltale sign of the rich mineral content of these mountains. And like many places in Washington, those minerals are what brought people to this area. Holden was originally a mining town, and at one time was the home to the largest copper, zinc, and gold mines in the state. The town once had over 600 people and still features some original buildings, including a bowling alley. Over its life, over 200 million pounds of copper and 37,000 pounds of gold passed through Holden. By my rough calculations, that would be about $1 billion in copper and $2.5 billion in gold at today's prices. Just the pure copper would be enough to fill 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools, so they must have moved an entire small mountain worth of material. All that extraction came at a cost to the next generation. Closed mines continued to leach contaminants into the water, and the water from Holden eventually flows down into the Columbia River, which provides water for much of Washington's apples, wine, and other agriculture. Today, Holden Village is a spiritual retreat, and Rio Tinto manages remediation for the closed mines. Rio Tinto wasn't involved in the original mining operations, but they've put hundreds of millions into the cleanup, including building a one-of-a-kind, off-the-grid water treatment plant. Thank you for joining us on this adventure. There are hiking resources below and information on free ways to help support this channel. The easiest is liking and subscribing. Thank you. Happy exploring.